Ukrainian forces say they've discovered a mass burial site in the recently liberated city of Izium.
The UN Human Rights Office says reports of possible mass graves near the Ukrainian city of Izium are shocking. Kyiv says these sites are proof of war crimes committed by the Russian invaders. The largest one has about 450 unmarked graves, making it the biggest in Europe since the Balkan Wars of the 1990s. Ukrainian forces found wooden crosses, most of them marked with numbers, in a forest outside Izium. It's not known who were buried or how they died, but Ukraine's police chief estimates that most of them were civilians. Early accounts suggest some may have died from shelling and a lack of medical care. Local officials estimate that 1,000 were killed in Izium during the Russian occupation, which began in late March. Moscow used the town as a military hub to supply its forces in eastern Ukraine. Well, Russia has not commented on the discovery, but it has denied committing atrocities in the past, claiming they were fabricated.
Obviously, we will be looking to see whether they were military personnel or civilians, and also whether they were killed, whether they died in hostilities or indeed died from natural causes exacerbated by the lack of medical aid.
Julia Chapman joins us live now from Kyiv. Julia, what exactly will the authorities be working on at the site in the days to come?
We understand that they have already cleared the area for any possible explosives that had been left behind by Russian forces when they left Izium and other areas in the Kharkiv region. Today, they are getting underway with exhumations, trying to establish how many bodies are buried exactly in this grave, which does appear to be a mass grave with some bodies piling up in the same grave. We understand that they are all unmarked. They have numbers and crosses, but no names. So certainly getting to a sense of more information about what happened to these people who have been found in the forest near Izium, how they died, who they were. Certainly establishing these details will be a big priority for investigators, not least to inform their family members, but also to go on to possibly prosecute those responsible for their deaths. Inevitably, this is going to be a long process. But it is one that is being met with very sad news by the Ukrainian officials, who are calling this a possible war crime, likening what they're seeing in Izium to what they found in Bucha and Irpin, the suburbs of Kyiv, where the Russians withdrew from in April, leaving behind stories and allegations of the abuse at which the residents suffered at the hands of the Russians there.
Well, it sounds like, bringing those perpetrators in Izium to justice will be especially hard. As you've mentioned, it's going to be a long process. But what are some of the other challenges?
Yes, certainly. Prosecuting those responsible for potential war crimes is a challenge in any conflict situation. At first, the officials will be trying to establish some sort of chain of command, establish who it was that killed these people, whether they were killed in shelling, whether they were killed at point-blank range by Russian soldiers, and then going on to establish who ordered those killings. Undoubtedly, killing civilians is a breach of the Geneva Conventions, so that will be a very important thing for prosecutors to establish. But then holding them to account is another matter altogether. There are, of course, many Russian soldiers who were captured by Ukrainian forces, who will inevitably be put on trial for their involvement in possible war crimes. But going on to prosecute those who may have ordered them to carry out certain acts is another matter altogether. Of course, there are two main international courts involved in these kind of things, the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court. Only the International Criminal Court can bring individuals to justice, and that does involve an extradition from those countries. So inevitably, that's something that Russia will resist. It is not a member or a signatory to the ICC, but we already understand that international investigators have been on the scene in Izium already today. Journalists have been there as well, and the UN is planning to send in its own mission to establish the facts on the ground with an aim to find out more about how this happened and who should be held accountable for it.
Many thanks for that report. Julia Chapman reporting to us from Kyiv.